what does? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Jakobs Wife. Kind of a f***ed up thing to say, but at least it's my wife. Jakobs Wife's a story about an overlooked and underappreciated wife of a minister who gets a little bit more kick in her step after becoming a vampire. They then have to work together to get her back to normal, or do they? I was scraping the barrel this week. I mean, I had a nice string of movies going there for a little bit, then all of a sudden the universe was like, did you just give your first F? That's it. Go on timeout. Think about what you've done. Well, yes, admittedly, it was nice to have a weekend off, which was very convenient considering I had a huge production this past weekend that needed tending to. Still, I don't know. I felt the need to get something in. Looked at Voyagers as a real strong candidate. I mean, new movie, new release in theaters. I mean, why not? But it looked horrible, and if I ripped that movie apart after ripping apart The Unholy last week, I'm officially an asshole. Looked through all my streaming services, I just couldn't find anything, but then I checked in a place where I did not think to look. YouTube. There I saw a review for this film from Chris Stuckman, decided it was something I'd like to dissect. So yes, this is one of the rare cases where I've seen or read a review for the movie before seeing it, which is something I generally try to avoid doing. But I guess I can take it with a grain of salt because me and Mr. Stuckman do not always agree on movies. Ah, the beauty of movies. No one's ever right, yet no one's ever wrong. So I decided to give this marital bloodfest a whirl. What could go wrong? The pros start with the two lead acting performances from Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden? Full disclosure, despite the fact that I'm a huge horror fan, I'm not really well versed in these two actors, which I guess they're really huge in the horror movie genre, but not like the mainstream horror that we always see in the movie theaters. It's like the B stuff, the stuff that you see in Netflix and generally skip over. That sounds like a knock, but I do not intend for it to be one. I mean, these are vast open waters when you dive into the depths of like Shudder and whatnot. In fact, my girlfriend popped in about halfway through the movie and watched the rest of it with me and literally said, this looks like something we watched at the film festivals. A few years back, I made a horror film myself and sent it out to several horror film festivals, and I went to all of them that I could that it got accepted to, except for Brazil because, well, I'm not made of money. But all of them that we went to, we sat all day and watched movies like this, the B horror, that kind of fun, over-the-top, cheesy stuff, and I think that these two actors are pretty well known in this universe. And I gotta say, the two of them really kept this movie afloat, playing the titular Jacob and his wife. They really did a good job of bringing this old relationship to life. You could really feel the weight of the years of her living in his shadow throughout the course of all of these years and years of marriage. Their dynamic was very interesting, very feasible, and it was largely due to their great performance and some decent writing. They clearly have their own problems to begin with, and then you throw in the whole vampire thing, that certainly amplifies things a bit. It kind of had Swallow vibes to it, a movie that I reviewed last year about a woman who was also overlooked by her husband and then all of a sudden starts eating inedible objects. But if you see my review of that movie, I enjoyed it, but the biggest knock that I had was all of the characters around her, including her husband, all felt like cartoons that were all just kind of pushing her to the edge of her doing the thing that she ultimately does and eating a bunch of stuff. None of the characters in that movie felt real, but that's not the case in this movie. I mean, Jacob in himself, yeah, he overshadows her, but he's not malicious. It's not intentional. It just happens. He's not a monster or anything. He was just someone that was stuck in his ways, and that's a very human thing for a movie to explore. It's a very understandable story with a very inhuman twist of the vampire inclusion. Speaking of the vamps, let's dive into the horror aspects of the movie. They were pretty good. They had some really great sequences of really tense buildup. It was really well executed. Nothing felt cheap. It was all well earned. It had, for the most part, a very subtle, mysterious, suspicious soundtrack that complemented the vibe of the film very well. It had a nice throwback feel to it of like classic horror, and I really dug it. It also had a lot of violence, blood, and gore, which I obviously really enjoyed. This movie really leaned into the ridiculous, the outrageous, just went really over the top with the blood and the gore, just the more the better. But it wasn't like gore porn like Saw or Hostel or anything like that. It was like a cartoon, like Kill Bill or something like that, just that over the top, ridiculous amount of blood that you just can't help but just kind of laugh at. It was a very fun, self-aware level of violence that it knew exactly what it was doing. It didn't really try to do anything else in that regard. They weren't trying to be gritty or grounded or realistic or anything. I mean, even some of the Foley that they worked in, the sound effects, like when someone like swipes their arm or something, like they made a very cartoonish sound. It sounded like the Three Stooges or something. You could tell that the editors definitely had a few chuckles while putting this movie together. It kind of had like an Evil Dead vibe to it, like it knew it was insane and just kind of kept on that trajectory instead of trying to divert for any anything else. Well, I guess they eventually reached that point, and that does kind of take me right to the cons. This film is kind of the tale of two films. Like, the first half of the movie is one thing, then all of a sudden, the flip of a switch, one scene in particular, all of a sudden the movie just decided to be bat crazy bloodfest. Contrasting the very grounded beginning and then the very insane ending. The two of them are very good individually, but the two tones are so different, I just don't think that they married really well together. The film kind of lacks consistency, not only in this regard, but just in a lot of other aspects. Like, even aspects that I thought were good had some bad to it. For instance, great acting performances from our lead, and then really performances from every single other supporting actor in the movie. Solid writing in terms of the characterization and the relationship building between our two titular characters, and then just really bad dialogue, like random lines that get spoken and regurgitated in the movie that you're like, how the hell did that make the final cut of the movie? A very nice, calm, subtle soundtrack, but then all of a sudden it ramps up the RPMs here and there and it gets really obnoxious, like a terrible electronic concert. This movie was just a huge game of ping pong. It was hot, then it was cold, then it was this, then it was that, then it was this again, then that. All in all, I think that this movie is okay, but not a lot better than that. It knows exactly what it is and doesn't give you anything else. The question at hand is this what you're looking for in a horror movie? For some, I think it will be. For others, it's gonna be stupid as hell. For me personally, it kind of fell right in that sweet spot. I do not think it is a good movie at all, but I cannot deny that I had my fair share of chuckles while watching. I'm going to give Jakobs Wife a C. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.